that had certain historical elements to it that sort of defined it architecturally. And I wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't lose that. And thankfully, I've only been there a month, but I found that what I have is an incredible support team at the SDA that does really unheralded work, and they worked hard to be able to put together this presentation, because certainly after only a month, I don't know a lot. And I think somebody pointed that out, that I don't know a lot, and I would tend to agree with it. But I have a great support team that can assist me. So I want to go through this slide deck today to talk about Trenton High School and what I think needs to be done. This is a front picture of Trenton High School, and what you see in the front is this sort of grand entranceway. It's much more dilapidated than it might look in the picture, but it is a grand entranceway, and I believe it once again will be a grand entranceway. And it comes into the school. There's a clock tower that I think, to a lot of people's minds, defines what Trenton High School is. And if you were to walk straight in, you walk into a very large and ornate auditorium. And I think it's important for us as we move forward to maintain that historical architectural element of this school. And I think it's important that children who come for generations after walk across the same stage to receive their diplomas that their parents and grandparents did too. I think that's an important link to the past that Trenton High School needs to have. Somewhere I'm supposed to be able to move this slide back, so let's see. There we go. That is I'll get it eventually. That's a view of Trenton High School from the air, and it just gives you a bit of a perspective of what the entire building looks like. I want to key on the small building that's behind the large structure, surrounded by trees. That is the powerhouse. That is where the boiler is, and the electrical system comes through, and it feeds the power and the heat to the entire school. At the end of the day, I'm going to talk a little bit later about that. That's going to stay. Trenton High School, I want to talk a little bit about what it does. The Trenton High School basically provides a support to the district's small learning communities. These are educational small schools that live in the overall Trenton High School environment. So they have a 9th grade academy. They have a school of hotel, restaurant, and tourism businesses. They have a school of communications. They have a STEM school, science, technology, engineering, and math. They have a school of visual and performing arts. And all of these are sort of self-contained environments that share the core facilities of the physical education, the gym, the dining facilities, such as they are, the media center, which has been explained to me as a library, and the auditorium. So what you have is these separate schools operating independent of one another, but yet coming together as the one larger Trenton Central High School, which is very important. I want to talk about the project that currently is on the boards. And that project has a number of aspects to it. One is the building envelope project. What has happened to Trenton High School over the years is water infiltration. And water infiltration has absolutely decimated the school and causes most of the problems that we have. Well, in order to repair that, the first thing that was going to have to happen was that envelope, the entire envelope of the school, was going to have to be waterproof. So it was going to need new roof, it was going to need new pointing, it was going to need new windows. And then only once we had made it watertight could we have begun the renovations. The renovation was going to stud out the existing walls and put plasterboard over it and put new plumbing and new electrical. But what it was really going to do, it was going to encapsulate the existing asbestos and any existing hazardous materials that were there. It would render it safe, but it wasn't going to get rid of it. The renovations were going to be limited to the science labs only. It was not going to get an entire furniture fit out, although it was going to get some technological upgrades, so it would get interactive whiteboards and mobile science and lab equipment, but it wasn't going to get all new furniture. And we expected that this would take about 2.5 years. And even during the envelope project, we were going to have to move the children out of the cafeteria and into some temporary feeding facilities, a tent probably. And what we expected to be about a 2.5-year interior construction period, we were going to have to move the students out because we felt that when you start messing with the walls and you'd have problems with asbestos and other hazardous materials that would become friable and arguably could pose a danger to the students. So the best thing we were going to do was move them out. That was, and that is, frankly, the current project that this board has approved. So again, those buildings are going to stay, except for those buildings, we're all going to stay with this renovation, and I'll just refer to G again, is the powerhouse. I want to talk about a new school facility now, and what a new school facility would entail. A new school facility that they want to build wants to obviously maintain the existing iconic historical elements of the building, the front entranceway, like I said, the clock tower, the auditorium. We will work with the Board of Education to design a new school around that existing historical structure. And the way we work with the district to come up with a design, and we fully expect that the district is going to engage the community and get the community's ideas, so that when we deal with the district, we're also getting the input from the community. The new school is going to provide new furniture, all new furniture and all new technology. We're going to maintain that existing power plant. A new school will be fully air conditioned. And like the renovation, but for a longer period of time, a new school is going to require that we relocate and find swing space for the students while this goes on. I will tell you that we've already had one meeting with the district on swing space, which I think was a very positive meeting. We are both today and tomorrow going to look at possible structures that we could move students into. But that certainly is going to be the first hurdle that we have, is taking all of these students and understanding that many students are going to have their entire high school experience not in Trenton Central High School. And that's a huge sea change for those students. And we have to make sure that what we do in conjunction with the district is to make sure that those students have a quality education as well, albeit not in the building that other students are in and not in the building that students will eventually be in, but those students who are going to be displaced in this interim period cannot be forgotten, and their education is no less important than anyone else's, and we have to make sure as we move forward that that happens. So essentially, this is obviously at this point very early on in the stage, but you see what we expect to do is to maintain the existing structure in the middle, and then around it build a new state-of-the-art 21st century school building that is going to support the type of learning communities that the school envisions. I want to talk about what a new school would give as opposed to a renovated school. A new school is going to only substantially address the facility conditions and needs. The conditions are going to be substantially addressed by a renovation, but at the end of the day, what we're talking about is an 82-year-old structure. So we are not going to be able to fully address all of the needs in a renovation. I like to use the analogy that I can give, were I a plastic surgeon, I could give somebody a facelift, and I could make that person look really good. But that person is still going to have 75-year-old knees that are going to give out, and 75-year-old hips that are going to give out, and a heart that's just not going to last as long as a newborn's one. So while we can substantially address the facility concerns and needs, with a renovation. We cannot fully do it as we would with a new school. It will not, a renovation, provide cooling for the entire facility because we will not have the ability to put in an air conditioning system. We will not eliminate all of the asbestos and hazardous materials because, as I said, the plan calls for encapsulating them. With a new school, we will obviously not build with the materials that cause us harm. We live in a much different era and are much more conscious about the materials that we use to build schools. There's an asterisk there because obviously we're going to maintain some of the original structure, and the asbestos and hazardous materials are going to have to be and will be remediated. We will not provide a complete furniture and technology fit out in the old school, but obviously a new school will do that. Ongoing operational expenses are going to be higher with the current project than they would be with a new school because obviously a new school is going to be built in a much more energy efficient way. So the district's operating expenses are going to be lower, and obviously with a new building, the maintenance expenses are going to be lower than they would be with an old building. Both the renovation and the new building will accommodate the capacity needs for the school. That's something that's dictated essentially by the board, the Department of Education. Next, I want to talk about the educational needs of the program and the differences between a renovation and a new building. In the current building, more than half of the existing classrooms do not meet the minimum Department of Education standards for size, and a renovation will not remedy that. With a new school, obviously, all of the classrooms will meet the standards that DOE has set forth. There are presently 3 existing science labs in the school, and those labs will be renovated in a renovation, and we will provide mobile units as required. With a new school, the requirements are a total of 13 new science labs will be provided to the educational program. The computer technology labs, basically there are 7 existing computer labs now, 4 of which are undersized, and those would continue going forward, and interior they would be renovated. With a new school you get 12 computer labs because that's what the education program requires. As we move forward, there are no provisions made for new or specialized instructional areas, and the 8 existing art and music areas will remain physically as is, although they'll obviously be made to look a lot nicer. With a new school, you're going to get 24 additional specialized instructional areas. You're going to get a culinary arts lab, cosmetology classrooms, digital communications lab, photo media lab, television studio, design and engineering lab, and it goes on because this is the way that we design new schools. We design new schools for the way that students learn. I have a kitchen that was built in 1950. And in 1950, when my kitchen was built, probably the only appliance that existed was a toaster. And so consequently, they didn't put a lot of electrical outlets in my kitchen, and they didn't put a lot of counter space in my kitchen because there wasn't that many things to put on the counter. Now, I have a microwave oven, I have an electronic coffee machine, I have a juicer, I have a Cuisinart, I have a electric teapot, and all of these things don't fit in my kitchen. They don't work. One thing, I can't plug them in. It's a fire hazard already with the 8 plugs that I have going into one. And I don't have the counter space to do it, so I have to constantly keep taking things out of the cupboard and putting it on the counter and taking the other things off. The bottom line is my kitchen doesn't work. And in a lot of ways, my kitchen is like Trenton Central High School. It was designed and built, great as it was, for another era, and not for the way we do things today. So, like my kitchen, which constantly has me cursing at it, I'm sure that Trenton Central High School has a lot of people cursing at it because it doesn't support the educational needs of the students and the way we teach. Presently, Trenton High School has a 3,680 square foot library media center, which will remain as is, although having seen it, I'm sure that we can upgrade it a lot because it has rotting walls and leaks. A new school will have a 10,000 square foot state-of-the-art media center. It's just going to support the students that much better. The physical education facilities, presently there's a 14,000 square foot gym, but that gym 4,000 of those square feet are taken up by the bleachers, which are not retractable. In a new gym, we will build a 15,000 square foot gymnasium, and it will have retractable bleachers. So the usable space for any gym class would be the full 15,000 square feet. And if there were to be a basketball game or a wrestling match or some event, those bleachers will come out, and you'll have sufficient space for that. In addition, the other existing physical education facilities will remain as is, whereas with the new school, we will build a 7,500 square foot auxiliary gym with weights, lockers, and team rooms. And obviously, it will be a much more state-of-the-art physical education facility. I understand that there is concerns about the pool, and our mandate does not permit us to spend money on pools, but there is an existing pool there that sort of lines up behind the auditorium, and we will work with the community, and we will look at it and take every possibility of being able to renovate that so it's not us building it, and be able to maintain it. I can't make you any promises about that going forward, other than we will, as the gentleman said, work with the district to see what we can do with respect to that. Basically, with the current project, the small learning communities are limited and restricted by the way that the building is designed. And with the new school, we will be able to design the school to accommodate the SLC. So if you were in the STEM program, for instance, you will have your classrooms in the same place that you'll have your laboratories, and in the same place that you'll have your administrative offices. And so the schools truly will be self-contained and will be able to have their own identities, yet continuing to be part of the greater Trenton Central High School. So those, I think, are important things that the new school will bring to it. So again, if we go through the evaluation, we see that the current project will only substantially deal with the conditions. It won't provide cooling. It will not eliminate the asbestos and hazardous materials. It will not get new furniture. It will have higher operating expenses. It will have higher maintenance expenses. It will meet the capacity needs. But frankly, I don't believe that it will accommodate the educational programs as well as a new school will accommodate those. And to me, frankly, it's that final node in the current project that is the tipping point for me, because maybe you can live with a lot of the other things, but we have to make sure that we provide the best education for people like that little baby right there. And because I don't think the current project will accommodate the educational programs as well as the new school is, I believe that it's incumbent upon us to give them that new school. Finally, the conclusions and recommendations. You know, the difference in price, I was shocked to find between the renovation that we wanted to do, which was somewhere in the vicinity of $127 million, and building a new school, which is somewhere in the vicinity of $130 million. The price differential is so small that we would be shortchanging everyone, ourselves and the community, not to spend an additional $3 million to make sure that what these folks get is a state-of-the-art environment. It provides an essentially new facility at a comparable cost. It's going to be more efficient and less expensive for the district to run. In my mind, folks, it's really time to move forward with a new building for the students of Trenton Central High School, because more than giving them a state-of-the-art facility, it's going to tell these kids that we care about them. And that's something that they need to know. I didn't do that. I'd say that's divine intervention. That having been said, that ends my formal presentation, but if anybody has any questions of me or my team, Ed, I'd be more than happy to answer questions from the board.
I have a lot of questions, but I want to thank you first for putting that presentation on, so thank you so much. And I did learn a lot about the school. I did know a lot about it previously, but you know, you just learn something every time you actually talk about this school, and thank you so much for telling us. Does anybody else here have questions? I have a few. So let me go first, I guess. There were some comments made. Maybe these aren't actually things you're going to answer for us, but I just want to make sure we're paying attention to these things. The one thing I hear all the time is this communication that we have with the districts, and we got to straighten that out. I've been confused by that since I've been here, and somehow we got to make sure that our communication, whoever that's with, gets then down to the public. So
I think that what we're going to do with respect to that, so you know, is we're going to work hand in glove with Superintendent Diaz and with the principal. Duran. I'm sorry, Francisco Duran. And I know that the principal is not a shrinking violet, so I fully expect that I will get calls from her. But what we expect is that the district is going to coordinate the outreach to the community, but that we will work hand in glove with the district.
Okay. So certainly that's one of them. Most of my comments actually relate to construction. For those of you who don't know me, I'm actually just a construction guy. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in politics. So all I keep thinking about is the materials and how we're going to get this done on time. So that's not anything you're going to answer right now, but I think the board should hear more about the materials. I do get concerned about when we use what I would consider materials that may not last forever. And this school's only here today because actually at one point there's materials that were used that even lasted 100 years. So I am concerned about that a little bit. Let's just make sure that we're using the right materials, and the timing of the project is something you probably don't have to answer right now.
Well, I can give you an insight into it. It's probably a 4 to 5 year process from beginning to end. One of the major questions we're going to have is, can we move these students out in September? And that's a tight schedule right now. It's not beyond the realm of possibility, but it may not happen. And then you deal in schools with terms, right? So if you can't move them out in September, then you don't get to move them out until January. And if you don't move them out in January, then you don't get to move them out until the end of the year. So I think that everybody, when we got together, wants to try to shoot for September, knowing that that may have to slip, but I think that that's a date we have to work for. I'm big into deadlines. And once we get the students out of the school and can actually start taking it apart, dismantling it, I think we're talking somewhere between a 4 and 5 year process, which I keep telling Richard Sherman is going to be a 4-year process.
So I think at our other regular meetings that we have, other than our board meetings, we should get an update on this.
Absolutely.
And not, yearly, should probably be every month for a little bit, just to understand what's going on.
Absolutely agree.
I'm assuming we're going to have a special team. I actually do not want to make this school so special that it's our conversations all the time, but clearly it is, right? We need to focus on it a little bit. There's so many other schools we need to focus on at the same time.
I agree. We have to multitask for sure, but I will say that I think that there has been a trust void that has been built up between the community and the SDA in this particular instance. And I think that if I can bridge that trust gap here, that hopefully it will give me credibility in Patterson folks who sort of have a similar trust here. So the school is going to be on my mind, but you're right, I have to multitask.
So, well, we need to give you the proper people to do that too, which you commented before that we do have great people here, and I agree. I mean, whoever did these plans this quickly and came up with ideas and did a budget is amazing to me. But on the budget side of things, since that's what I deal with on my day-to-day, job, I am a little concerned about the budget, but it is what it is. We have to actually make sure we're building the right school. And that renovation budget probably never would have worked anyway. I mean, as soon as we did something, it would have been a change order. Something would have happened. So
I think new buildings are more predictable in price than renovations. I think that the way we intend to go forward with this, which is a design build rather than a design bid build, will hopefully keep change orders to a minimum. But as you well know, as you move forward on a project, some things change.
Right. So, and in that process of maybe preparing the site and demolishing the building before we actually go out to bid for the other building could happen. which is, you're shaking your head, so maybe you're already going to do that. So there's a lot of details, right? But we can't do anything until we approve this.
Correct.
So you did a good job in selling me, so you don't need to sell me anymore, but there's certainly a lot of details we need to talk about in other meetings, and then our regular SRC meetings, probably need to talk about those. So.
Correct.
Anybody else have any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do, unfortunately, but I am proud to have cast the first vote for the high school.
Just a quick comment. As a long-serving board member, I'm pleased to assure the others also that we now have a plan and agreement on a concept on how to move forward. I think that's been lacking, and so I think the relationship that Charles began to develop, and I think we've always tried to do with the community, is now finalized, and certainly this is the project that has to get done.
Okay. Anybody else have any other comments?
I'm so glad that we're all sick and tired of being sick and tired. So it sounds like it's about time that we need to move forward to make sure that the education for all the students in the state of New Jersey are comparable, and we look forward to the next steps.
Okay, if there's no other comments, I'd like a motion to approve. Wait, let me actually get it right. It's actually Resolution 4A. All right, second? All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Resolution 4A is approved. I appreciate all your time and effort. And I look forward to not only the groundbreaking, but the grand opening.